Good evening, everybody. It's been a while. Hopefully, you can see me and hear me, and everything isn't on fire and full of lightning immediately. It's been a little while since we've done this, and I'm gonna be super rusty, and I'm gonna be looking at like 8 million different screens while doing this to make sure that I can see that I'm coming up all right and everything is working. And like literally before pressing the button to turn my face on, I had a little message being like, your stream bitrate isn't high enough, warning. And then it doesn't tell me how to fix it, so we're gonna have to try and fix that on the fly. But hello, greetings, my name is Anto. Welcome to the live stream where we're going to be doing some collaborative world building tonight. We haven't done this we've not done this in a while. It's getting on for, I want to say, nearly a year since we've last done this. We did a lot of these streams last year. We went for like 8 or 9 unbroken months of doing this every week over on Twitch. And then the OGL happened, and it kind of sapped all of my will for just anything. And it's taken me a long time to kind of recover from that. As for why we're doing it on YouTube instead of Twitch, a big part of the reason why I wanted to come back and start doing live streams again is because being on social media has kind of sucked in this last year. Like, engagement on all platforms has kind of died a death, and I miss talking to people, and there's a lot of people who are subscribed to this channel, so my hope is that by coming to YouTube we're going to get a lot more people watching these streams, and I'm going to be able to engage with a lot more people. My intention for doing this is to talk to you all, so throughout the course of the evening, please get involved in chat. It's always a lot more fun when you get involved and get involved in the discussion and get involved in the world building, and it's all good fun. So while we're getting ready to kick things off, I'm going to try and figure out how I change YouTube's streaming bitrate, because it keeps popping up being like, it's lower than it's recommended, and then it doesn't tell me how to change it. And then when I click on another button, it's like, yeah, the status is good, it's fine actually. So we're just gonna hope that it's actually fine. I can't see a button to change it, so I'm just gonna close that window, and we're gonna hope that it's all fine. Love you, channel. This is my first stream. Welcome in, welcome back to everyone. Sub to your found your videos. Enjoy the process for your world building. Has helped me with mine. I'm glad. That's another big intention for these videos, is I want to help people with their own world building. I find it really helpful when I can watch other people's process and kind of get inspired by that. There's a couple of technical things I need to do before we get started. Like I said, we're going to be rusty. It's going to take a little bit of time. The first thing that I want to do is I want to do some audio stuff. You should be able to be hearing me and music. I want to double check that you're hearing everything okay and all the sound levels are fine, because I can't hear the music because I've turned the music off because it distracts me, or that music distracts me because I have to use royalty-free music, obviously. So I want to make sure that the levels all sound good to everyone, and then I want to make sure that I can listen to music but that you can't hear it, because I want to listen to music that you're not allowed to listen to. And I think I've got it all set up, but I want to double check. Devin says about to start world building for my world 2. Awesome. Everything sounds good. That's good. Right, we're just gonna press play on my music, and I'm gonna hope that it works. So hopefully you can't now hear 2 streams of music. If you can, YouTube is going to be very angry with me. Because it will be copyright music that I've got in my ears, which will be different to the music that you've got, which isn't how I used to do it. I used to listen to the same music that you all listen to. Now it says, I barely did any world building for my project in more than a year. Hope this stream will help rekindle the flame. Let's have some fun. Awesome. Right, there's a little heart on the screen that's like just in the way of part of the chat. I've also got a new teleprompter that this is of no consequence to you folks, but I've got a new teleprompter, so you are all chat like right in my lens. So it's like I'm looking at you. It's like we're really here having a conversation. It's great. So I think we should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and press the big button. I'm going to switch over to the desktop view. So for those of you that are here for the first time and joining one of these streams for the first time, this evening we're going to be doing all of our world building in Legend Keeper. I see that questions just coming in about that. On a budget, I'll talk about budget for world building in a second, but this evening we're going to be doing it all in Legend Keeper. This is the map and the project map for the Jewel Cities of Talavaar, which is my current homebrew setting that I'm running my campaign in. We're about 30 sessions into that campaign now, and we're going to be doing some world building for that, kind of picking up not where we left off because a lot has happened since then, but picking up where I am in the campaign and building out some of the stuff that I've got going on in the world around there. Crikey, that's a busy world. It is a busy world. I think we're getting close to like 600 pins if I zoom out and turn on pin clustering and then let it freak out for a moment. What are we up to? 553 pins. So not quite as many pins as I thought, actually. But it is a lot of pins. You can't really see the map when you zoom out, but we're gonna zoom in so we can actually see the map. So we are predominantly focused with this little region here, which is known as the Vale. That is where my players originally decided to start their campaign in. I can't even remember whether my campaign had started the last time we were doing these live streams. That's how long it's been. So prior to the campaign starting, we did a heap of world building on this map. We put down hundreds, we put over 500 pins down on this map, and most of those pins have stayed in place, and they've been really useful in running this sandbox campaign. It took me a little bit of time to kind of find my groove with the campaign, because I think I had different expectations of the players. The players wanted a really sandboxy campaign, and I'm a really story-focused guy at heart, and I kept trying to introduce story to them, and they kept just moving past it, and I kept getting kind of disheartened by it. And then one session, one of the players described their playstyle as rat players, and they just wanted to be rats and go from place to place and explore. I'd given them this treasure map that highlighted a few key areas, and they're like, we just want to be rats and go from place to place, explore some of these treasure maps, figure out the cool stuff that's there, and just kind of pick up interesting quests along the way. And as soon as I realized that they were in that kind of rat player mentality, I was like, cool, I understand what we're doing now. It's all fine. How well does Legend Keeper share for your players compared to, say, World Anvil? So you can share public worlds in a Legend Keeper. Let me go ahead and I'll grab a link to my public world in a Legend Keeper, and I'll drop it in the chat. Is that the one? We're going to confirm it's the one before we do it. Yes, that is the one. So this is the public world version of this Legend Keeper page. You can see far fewer pins, far fewer pages that are accessible, but you can share the world. So this is what my players would predominantly see. So you can see kind of their hometown is there, and the map for it is there, and some of the headline information would be there. And then they can go ahead and click on some of the major cities and get some of the headline information for that. But it's not nearly as cluttered as the version of the map that I see, because I get to dictate what they see. And I'll go ahead and drop a version of that in the chat so people can browse it at their leisure. Time zone in the Jurassic Park zone. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. So I ran the Jurassic Park session for them with the guy that had all of the raptors and had the time zone stone. That went pretty well. They did not like the Jurassic Park guy at all. They found a bunch of kind of really unstable magic and triggered a volcano. They've done a lot, as players want to do. They've been menaces to society. But we are currently adventuring in the Underdark. In the last 2 sessions, they found, ages ago now, they found a treasure map with a load of different kind of points marked on the map. I don't know whether I have the treasure map marked out anywhere. Not in this page, I don't. But I've got it somewhere in Legend Keeper, but I can't remember where for the life of me. But it's just a copy of this Vale map where I just mark some crosses that correspond to some of these pins, like this Timestone research station and a living mountain up here, some information about an abandoned mine from a coal dragon up here, a note to say beware the Morrowkin down in the Bay of Tears, things like that. And they've kind of alternated between going to the locations marked on the treasure map and then going to do other stuff. So that's been pretty cool. It seems to be a delay in screen. Your message appeared in chat long before you said you'd send it. That doesn't surprise me. I don't know whether YouTube might have a little bit of a delay built in. I think it might have like up to 60 seconds baked in. That might be something that I can change with settings though. I don't know whether it's something I can change on the fly. We'll open it and try and figure out. Again, it's been a while, so and YouTube live stream has changed a little bit, and OBS has changed a little bit. So there's all kinds of stuff to figure out. I can't seem to figure out how to change the bitrate though. I don't know whether that's something that can be done during the stream. I'll figure it out after. Sean says, are you using 5e or Pathfinder 2nd Edition? Pathfinder 2nd Edition for this campaign. I used 5e for my previous campaign, ran pretty much level 1 to 20 campaign in 5e for that, and then we're using Pathfinder 2nd Edition for this one. So far it's been going pretty good. It's been a lot of kind of getting used to the system, learning the system. A lot of instances where obscure rules will come up, little fringe rules will come up, and we'll have to pause and go search them up the first time it happens. But it's the same with learning any new system. But my players have finally figured out that working together and kind of imparting conditions is the key to winning Pathfinder 2nd Edition combats. So for a long period of time, they were all kind of operating as individual rogue agents, and they wouldn't fight together in combats. And we had a number of combats where several of them would go down again and again and again in combats. And it seems like they've turned a corner now and are finally working together, and they've realized if we all gang up on the same thing, impart a bunch of status conditions on it, it really makes the combat a lot easier, which is a lot of fun for me because it means that I can really ramp up the difficulty of the combats. I can throw more monsters in there, more difficult monsters. Like the combat we had in last night's session had way more monsters and a lot higher level monsters than we've ever had before, because the players are getting used to working together as a team and dispatching things much more efficiently, which is great. And then we've got the Pathfinder remaster, which has come out this week. It came out yesterday publicly. I've had it for, I want to say, a month, getting on for a month. So we've been playing with a couple of the Pathfinder remaster rules sprinkled in whenever they come up, which I've been really enjoying. I've got a video with my kind of first impressions on that coming out tomorrow. How does time work? Is today Thursday? Today is Thursday. Yeah, tomorrow there'll be a video on the remaster coming out tomorrow. And that'll kind of go over my initial impressions of the player core book and what I thought of it and what I think of the remaster in general, kind of since starting to read through it. Right, so we should be all primed and ready to start doing some world building. So the way this is going to work, just going to dive into it at any point. If you've got suggestions, if you've got questions, anything like that, throw them in the chat. Like I said up at the jump, this is way more interesting and enjoyable when people get involved. So we're going to be working on some Underdark stuff. My players recently went to the Underdark. Excuse me. And we're going to be developing kind of some of the larger plot stuff that's going on there. So we'll go ahead and we want to open up this page here. Sean asks, do you use the new Dying rules? I think those new Dying rules got errated or FAQ'd like today or yesterday. I had planned to use the new Dying rules though, because I'm a big fan of more deadly combats. The idea of getting your wounded condition added to your dying condition didn't bother me. It was something that made sense to me as not a punishment, but a kind of disincentive for players to go down in the first place, because I find that in a lot of like heroic fantasy games, players never really have a reason to run away, because provided you don't die, you'll be fine, no matter how many times you go down or how much damage you take. So I was a big fan of the changes. Excuse me. Forgot how much you have to talk for streams. I really need to move or copy my mute button onto the right Stream Deck screen as well, so I can mute myself and make sure that I can cough in peace. There we go. Perfect. Nav says, I'll throw a suggestion in the pile. Is there a prison or something like that in the world? A place where the unwanted or convicted people are sent? Might fit down there, and then the dark penal colony. So there are prisons. There are a couple different prisons dotted around the Jewel Cities. None that would probably fit for what we've got going on in the Underdark at the moment. So if I open up our adventure page, let's get a couple of pages going here. And open up our Into the Underdark adventure, because that's got some of my rough notes. So when the players decided they were going to go to the Underdark, they had absolutely no plan for it. They were just like, we're going to go to the Underdark. We've no goals, we've no plans, we've no idea what's down there. We're just going there to experience it. Which is, on the one hand, great, because it gives me a lot of freedom to go, okay, cool, I can make a lot of decisions here. I can throw pretty much anything I want in front of the players. But then it's also a negative, because it's too much freedom. You know, you've got to start somewhere. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to find a way to tie this into at least one of the players' backstories. A little bit difficult because most of the players are kind of surface dwellers, but we've got one of the players who's playing a Cinder Dwarf, who is a dwarf ancestry who is from the Howling Badlands, which is an area of the Jewel Cities. If we go ahead and zoom out a little bit, it's this area at the north of the Jewel Cities here. It's a big irradiated desert that is the result of a big magical explosion from a material called cinder. Cinder is this crystalline substance that the dwarves have been using for a number of centuries. They consume it to slow the process that petrifies them in their old age. So dwarves in my world, when they get old, instead of dying of old age, they slowly petrify, turn to stone. It's part of their creation myth. Not super important, but they use a substance called cinder to slow that process. A byproduct of that is it also drives them a little bit mad. So there's a group of people called the Cinder Dwarves. Wasn't it an elf land in the last stream? It is also elves, so there are dwarves and elves up in the Howling Badlands. Prior to it being the Howling Badlands, it was an elf dominion. And there's a whole conflict between dwarves and elves. So I wanted to tie in our Cinder Dwarf players' backstory into that. So I knew that I wanted to incorporate Cinder into our Underdark adventures, as far as the dwarf player knows, and as far as any of the players know, Cinder is only found in the Howling Badlands. So I thought if we put some Cinder in the Underdark, that's dramatically interesting, because that's not what they expected. It's different to the things that they knew up until this point, and it immediately hooks in one of the players. And typically, if you can get your hooks into one of the players, you can hook in everyone. So the idea is that we'd go in and we'd have something to do with Cinder down here in the Howling Badlands. Not the Howling Badlands, in the Underdark. So who lives in the Underdark? Is it called the Underdark in my world? It's renamed it and called the Abyss. I still call it the Underdark just because most of my players are real long-time players. So we bring a lot of kind of old-school D&D baggage with us. So Underdark will almost always be Underdark. So it's just easier to call it the Underdark. I do rename a lot of stuff for my world, and I will introduce new names over time, but there are some things it is easier to just call it the Underdark. So the idea is that there is this necromancer down here in the Underdark that is using Cinder in some way and is augmenting undead down in the Underdark. So we've got this kind of plague of Cinder augmented undead that is terrorizing this region of the Underdark. And I wanted to get multiple factions on the go in this conflict, because 2 factions is interesting, but 3 factions allows you to kind of pull things in multiple directions and makes it really interesting. So we've got our first faction is this necromancer and their Cinder imbued undead, and then we've got Drow and we've got Duergar. And those would be our 3 factions, and those would be our kind of 3 touch points to move between and create drama from. Now it says the Cinder produced in the Badlands due to its unique geology is a resource that happened to also be found there like any other resource. Not 100% sure yet. As far as anyone knows, up until this point, it has only been found in the Howling Badlands. This is the first time certainly any of the players have heard of it being found anywhere else. Could be wrong, but I think High Roller's new campaign does something similar with their dwarves, petrification instead of death. Cool. Well, can't say I've ever watched any of the High Roller stuff. I'm not super into actual plays. I've watched a couple of different ones, but it's not super my jam. But I do like petrification instead of death for dwarves. Is a necromancer a dwarf who has taken their knowledge of Cinder down to the Underdark, or someone who has a connection to the surface to supply the Cinder? So at the moment, the necromancer is based purely on a monster stat block. So one of the monsters in the Pathfinder 2nd edition rulebook is the Blessed of Gotha, whatever the god of death is in Pathfinder, and it's this monster. And I saw that and I was like, that looks really cool and that's really funky. Let's use that. So I renamed it to the Blessed of Koros, who is the goddess of death and decay in my world. So the necromancer is known as the Blessed of Koros, and it's going to be this gnarly looking lady here, and she has a source of Cinder that she's uncovered, and a new use for it, and she's using it to kind of imbue the undead in the region and kind of expand her sphere of influence. And that's one of our kind of trifecta of factions down here. Then the other 2 are our Drow, who are based in the city of Erenday, and then a faction of Duergar, who have basically been close to wiped out by these undead, cinder-infused kind of zombies. They've been forced to make an alliance with the Drow, and there's kind of a real tentative ceasefire on the go. These are two factions that have long been in conflict with one another. They've kind of made a temporary peace, and the Dwarga have come in to the Drow city, and they're working together to try and stop this undead force. So this kind of Underdark alliance forms our second faction. And then the third faction is a group of Cinder Dwarves that have heard that there is Cinder down here in the Underdark, and they're here to get it. I really forgot just how much of a toll it takes on your throat. So much speaking. I haven't spoken this much in weeks. So those are our three factions. We've got a faction of Undead, a faction of Underdark, allied Drow and Dwarga, and then a strike force of Cinder Dwarves who've come in. And their goal is essentially to learn more about what's going on in this region, learn about the Cinder, because this is the first time they've heard of it being used outside of the region. And they've also heard that this Necromancer is able to imbue creatures with Cinder and enhance their powers. And what they want is to basically capture the Necromancer, take her back to the Howling Badlands, and use her to enhance the Cinder Dwarves, who have all been imbued with Cinder, and use her magic powers to basically level up the Cinder Dwarves and kind of heighten their empire. Sean says, have to leave, run D&D for the kids now, I'll catch a replay later. Thank you for stopping by and getting involved, much appreciated. So those are our three factions. The players arrived in the Underdark, did a little bit of exploring, encountered some Cinder-infused zombies, had a fun little moment when they realised that they weren't just regular zombies and they were much more powerful. So it's always good fun when the players realise that the zombies that they're fighting are more powerful than they first expected. And then they encountered a little scout party of Dwarga, and the kind of got a lay of the land, a little Cliff Notes introduction to here are the major factions in the Underdark. Here's the situation. There's this Red Death, this Cinder-infused undead force that's spreading throughout this region of the Underdark. It's a big problem for us. We've joined forces with the Drow, etc. And then in the next session, the players were led to the city of Erendé, which is this Drow city underground. I found a map for it on the Incarnate Explore page, which was just perfect. It's got a big old spider for the spider goddess, which I was really happy with. I love going on the Incarnate Explore page and looking for maps on there. Excellent. So they went to the city, met up with the Drow Queen Drysara, who essentially said, you look like expendable bodies that I can throw at a problem I've got, so I'll send you instead of people I actually care about. One of our patrols hasn't come back from some of our sacred waters, so you go and figure out what's going on, and if you come back, then maybe we'll talk about how you can be of actual long-term use to us. If you don't come back, well, there's no skin off my nose, I don't know you, I don't care if you die. So the Drow Queen sends the party off to go and investigate this missing patrol in these sacred waters, and on the way, the party runs into the group of Cinder Dwarves. One of our players is a Cinder Dwarf, and they immediately connect and start having a conversation, and the Cinder Dwarves say to the player dwarf, and they say, essentially, we want you to start capturing some of these undead. We don't want you to kill them all. We want you to capture them so that we can study them. But if you do that and the Drow see it, they're not going to allow you to carry on operating in this place. So when you get to these sacred waters, you're either going to have to let the undead kill the Drow, or you're going to have to kill the Drow yourself, then bring us some of the undead so that we can run tests on them, because we want to figure out what magic has kind of infused them with Cinder and how this Necromancer is doing what she's doing. I was expecting a little bit more of a moral quandary from this, but the dwarf player was just like, cool, we're going to kill the drow. We're immediately going to double cross them, and I'm all in for the cause. I'm all in. And they went to the sacred waters. The drow were fighting some of the infected undead that were imbued with this cinder substance, and they spent a couple turns just watching it, let the drow get thinned out, and then they got involved, mopped up the drow, killed off some of the undead, and then captured the rest. And that's kind of where we are at the minute. They've turned over some of their undead subjects to those cinder dwarves for testing. They're going to take the drow bodies back to the drow queens, say, we got there too late, we couldn't save them, we brought their bodies back, and then they're going to see if they can get an in with the drow. So my main goal for this evening is just to kind of figure out where to go from here. And then I'm going to move the desk up so I can stand. There we go. A dwarf never leaves a dwarf in need. Exactly. It was... I don't know why I didn't expect it, but I thought there would be more of a, oh, should we do this? Is this the right thing to do? And there was a little bit of pushback from some of the other player characters, kind of questioning whether or not this was what they should do. But the dwarf player was just immediately like, for the cause, this is exactly what I've been waiting for. Here we go. We're going in. We are killing these drow if we need to. We're getting these undead and we're shipping them back. And that was pretty fun. So what we want to do now is we're going to make a new page. So we're going to go create from template, and we want to go adventure 31. I have no idea what the adventure is going to be called yet, so we'll leave the name blank. Adventure template for our template. And then we want to go ahead and create that. And then this session is going to be the 22nd of the 11th. And then we need to figure out kind of what the next steps for the next session is, and build out everything that needs to happen in that session and all of the world building stuff that we need to do around that. So I know for sure that the structure is going to start with the PCs need to return to Erenday. So that's going to be the very first thing that needs to happen. So they have to return to the city. I don't think that I want them to interact with the Queen directly again, because they were terrified of her. They met up with her. They were led to the palace by the Dwerger that they kind of met up with in the caverns. They were led to a waiting room, and then kind of a general brought them before the Queen. And I don't know how I managed to do it, but I managed to successfully convey the level of danger that this Drow Queen presented. You know, they were escorted through the corridors by a dozen palace guards. When they got to the throne room, I described there being, maybe 40, 50 guards in this room in total. And they all just really felt the vibes that I was trying to put down for how terrifying the Queen was. And I'd like to keep that air of fear intact, and I think the more that they interact with her, the worse that's going to be. So I want to keep her at an arm's length for now. So I'm probably going to have them interact with someone of a lesser station. So if we go back to our last session, that's probably going to be Drow Warden Sindara is dead, because that was the person they were supposed to save. So we don't have to worry about that. Lady Alesra, right hand of the Queen. So it's probably going to be Lady Alesra who they speak to. So in our list of NPCs, we want to put Lady Alesra. And you can see I've got a little token there for Lady Alesra that I made with the character creator in Baldur's Gate 3. It's been one of my favourite things using that game for, after I blitzed through it like 3 times in a row. That's another reason why I took such a long time off from making videos, because Baldur's Gate 3 came out and I was like, oh cool, I'll just play a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3, and then I lost my entire life to it, and I just played it back to back and just played like 3 full run-throughs of it back to back. It was unhealthy. Now says this clearly needs to be designed to come back and bite them in the Underdark. Yeah, will the dwarves still be dwarves when they meet them again, or will they be actual undead for the hubris? Oh, you can't see, it's on my face, of course. Little token made from Baldur's Gate 3. Nice catch on that. So this is the template for my adventure planning. So this is what I start with, the clean slate I start with for planning all of my adventures. I have a little recap section. I don't really use the recap section because I keep that more in the calendar, but it's there. And then I have my summary where I kind of put my stream of consciousness ideas for what the adventure is going to be. I have my reminders for a 5-room dungeon, because if I'm going to be running something at the drop of a hat and I just need some kind of structure, I'll run a 5-room dungeon because it's really easy to put together. And then I have boxes down here for a more play-by-play of the structure, who the key NPCs that they're going to meet are, and then what loot they're going to get. So they're going to need to return to Erin Day to kind of say, hey, we did it, we didn't get there in time, but we've brought the bodies back. Then they'll meet Lady Elezra, because I don't want them to meet the Queen. So she's going to be the one, their kind of point of contact to say, okay, you've done your job, here's your reward. So whatever their reward is at this point. So we're going to need to consult the treasure by level table. Treasure by level. Let's open that up. So we are at level 6 now. And they have bought several things since I last updated this. So they have had like 500 gold as well. Got like 500 GP in gems. So at level 6, in terms of permanent items, this is when we're going to start getting 7th level permanent items, 7th level consumable items. They're going to have a decent chunk of currency. So we want to start looking at treasures that we could be giving them. So a 6th or a 7th level item. So 6th or 7th level perma item would be the reward. As it's an Underdark, do you have tips for leveled world maps? Because Underdark's mostly interesting when you have drastic differences in depths. I'm not sure I fully understand. Do you have tips for leveled world maps? Because Underdark are mostly interesting when you have drastic differences of depth. So in terms of the world map, the way I've been doing it has been, if I jump back to my world map, the way I've been tracking Underdark locations has just been on my regular world map. So if I zoom in here, I've been using a slightly darker tone of pin that really doesn't make a difference unless you're hyper used to the pins, but kind of tracking where the locations would be in relation to the rest of the world, versus showing the players kind of an Underdark world map, purely because what I want them to get the impression of is just a vast cavern system. Some above more than others, so more broken English. So instead of showing the players a kind of Underdark region map, I've been kind of just describing their travel between locations, and then when it comes to encounters, elevation. Yeah, now I understand. Yes, so I have been collecting a selection of maps that I've found on Google and Chepeku and a couple of other different map making services as well. If I go ahead and open up my maps folder here, will I be able to? Will this work? It will work. So this is a map that I picked up off Patreon. You can see the attribution here, Alarian Dreams. You can see how it's got multiple tiers of elevation. It's got raised areas that kind of snake down and lower areas, and there's kind of platforms that they can be pushed off. So a lot of the Underdark maps that I've been looking for have been cavernous maps that have got those kind of elements to play with that verticality. Let's see if I can find another example, because a lot of the ones that I use at a moment's notice are just kind of pulled from Google. Like this is the one that I used for the Sacred Waters. I found this on, I believe it was on Google. Oh, that's way too zoomed in. So this is what I used for the battle map for yesterday, and I ran it that all of the water was like super heated water. I'm figuring this is the Underdark, it's underground, it's closer to the planet's core. This water is going to be super heated, you know, there's steam and stuff in the map as well. So I ran all of the water as kind of dealing persistent burning damage if you ended up in it. And you can see how there's sections of this map where there are little platforms that the players could jump between, and there were broken bridges. At one point, one of the players used a fireball to blow up this map, and kind of change the status of the battle, which was really useful. More interested in world or region maps. Yeah, I've not been doing anything different with region maps for the Underdark. I've just been using my normal above world map and kind of tracking the relative position. So I've put a pin down for the underworld city of Erenday, but it's on my normal map, and it's just kind of, here is where it would be related to everything else, but it's underground, because the Underdark is so vast, and I don't expect the players to stay there too long, so I don't want to spend too much of my time making map assets myself. I imagine most of the Underdark maps that I use are going to be taken from Google searches and finding them on Patreons and things like that, versus spending time making them myself, because I just don't expect the players to be there for too long of a time. Perhaps something that's happened to the Dark Elf City in their absence. Maybe they've collected their own Cinder Undead or are running their own tests. I think that at some point we'll probably have something happen to the city. I don't want to go too hard too soon. For kind of throwing together a bunch of different elements and throwing together too many complicated things. At the moment they're thinking we're doing a job for the Drow, and we're also now doing a job for the Cinder Dwarves. So they've got two lines of thinking on the go, and I don't want to throw too many more complications at them. Are the underground pins the same map on the same map as the surface, or do you have a duplicate map to that? They're currently on the same map. Eventually, I think Legend Keeper will support multiple layers for maps, and be able to kind of toggle them off, which will be super handy. But at the moment, they're just all on the same layer, so they just add to the ever increasing number of pins that are on the Jewel City map. It is getting more and more messy. It definitely is getting more messy, but again, I don't think there's going to be many pins beyond Erenday, that kind of major Drow city, for the Underdark, because I don't think they'll spend a huge amount of time there. You know, if anything, I think I did too good of a job kind of playing up how dangerous the Drow city was, because they were like halfway through walking across it and they're like, we need to leave. We should not have come here. This place is too dangerous. We are going to end up in cages. one of us is going to say something to the wrong person and they're going to kill us. So I may have gone a little bit too hard with the "this is a dangerous place" descriptions, and I might have put too much of the fear of God in them, but well, it'll be fine. So for the next adventure, they need to go back to the city. They need to meet with someone, probably Lady Alezra. They need to get some kind of reward, possibly a 6th or a 7th level permanent item that is appropriate to their current level. And then we need to figure out where they go from here. In their mind, because they brought this up several times, they were like, we do this one job and then we're going to be tasked with going and hunting down the necromancer. In my mind, that's not how it was going to work at all, but I'm kind of hesitant to poo-poo on their ideas because, one, they're very afraid of this place and I don't think they want to spend a huge amount of time down here. 2, I can't think of a super compelling reason for them not to just take a run straight at the necromancer. And 3, I think it would be kind of cool if they took a run at the necromancer, and even if the necromancer was too powerful. So that's kind of where my headspace is at, that they'll get back to the city, get a little reward. Maybe their reward could be some money and they could go do a little bit of underground city shopping. I do believe at some point, actually, I have made notes on the currency of the Underdark. This feels like something I have done at some point in the past. Probably not in Pathfinder, probably in my D&D DM screen. Money. It's not services. Currency? We need to use the search function. Currency. Gosh darn it. Currency. Sapphire. Underdark doesn't use gold standard. Instead uses the Underdark is based around flex, fragments of shards of obsidian. I knew past me had had an idea about Underdark currency. Cool. So that's something to perhaps play with. Give them some flex of obsidian as a currency. Give them a special little custom currency to go and spend in the shops around there. Do a little bit of shopping, let them go and spend some of that money, pick up some items, and then if they want to take a crack at the necromancer, yeah, they can take a crack at the necromancer. It could be interesting. How about having the necromancer find them instead at some point? Why don't they expect her? They won't have to response ready. Could have the necromancer find her. That could be it. The group failed at rescuing the scout party, so maybe they want to test them again before sending them out to the necromancer. That's a good point, actually. They did fail. Well, kind of fail. They were hired more of to find out what was going on, but yeah, they didn't bring them back alive. So it could be there's definitely justification to send them on another errand. I just don't know what that errand would be beyond go and find more lesser undead and kill them. So it might actually be the perfect time to take a look at the Book of the Dead. Where is my Book of the Dead? Let's not knock everything over while we do this. Book of the Dead. So, Book of the Dead is a... Let's just swap me back to my face. Book of the Dead is a Pathfinder 2nd Edition product specifically tailored to the undead in their many incarnations. I've lost the ability to words. And it has the Grim Crypt. It's got like 100 pages of specific undead. So if we jump to that Grim Crypt, what I'll do is I'll flick through some of those pages until I see art for an undead that looks super cool, and then see whether we can build an interesting encounter around that, which is the way that I do a lot of my encounter building. Look, there's our necromancer lady, the child of Urgathoa? Is that how you say that? I do not know very much about the Pathfinder lore. But we've got a bunch of different options here. There's some like fiendish, shadowy undead, like underground worm undead, death coaches. There's several things that we could use. None of them scream like... I want something that I can quite easily adapt to having cinder elements to as well, because that's kind of the whole thing with them being down here. So we want something that either looks like it's got kind of crystalline elements, or that I could easily modify to look like it's got those. But if nothing jumps out, I'm happy to just have them take a run at the Necromancer, or have the Necromancer find them. A Grave Knight could be quite cool. Oh, Grave Knight's level 14. That's going to be far too high. A Fallen Champion. A Fallen Champion could be cool. Let's see. They get some spells. They get some armaments. And then they get to do damage. That's not the most interesting of stuff. If I'm going to have a specific monster if we're going to have a session that's not just fight the Necromancer, then it needs to be a really interesting monster. And none of these are jumping out at me for this specific setting as being the Underdark. There are a lot of cool undead in this book though, but a lot of them are more kind of above ground undead, and a lot of them are way too high level for the current party, or way too low level. Yeah, I don't think that we're gonna have another in-betweeny session. A big bad end of the world, got everything, got banded together, see them. Dark Elves located the Necromancer's mine and send the group to shut it down. Yeah. I think we'll probably just have them do some shopping and then take a run at the Necromancer. Return to Errand Day. Get some obsidian shards. Need to remind myself that that's currency. As a reward. Shopping. I have a new keyboard, I'm still not used to it. And then take a run at the Necromancer. Because I think that's what they are expecting. Based on what they were saying during the session, they were like, "Oh, we're just gonna go straight at it." So if we go and pull up an info box here. So we've got some. We need to be aware of the Cinder Dwarves, and the Cinder Dwarves could have information that they want, or need to come into play with whatever the players do. So if the players are going to take a run at the Necromancer, the Cinder Dwarves need to be involved in some way or have some input in that, and via that they have a bit of magic paper that they can communicate through. So keep that in mind. In terms of the Cinder Dwarves, it was Zarnak who was their contact for the Cinder Dwarves. Is that not? Did I not make a page for him? Yeah, I thought I did. Give me Zarnak's page. Zarnak. There we go. And then we need the Blessed of Koros. In terms of what if they're going to take a run at the Necromancer, then most of the session is going to be kind of tentpole combat. So most of the prep for that is just going to be how do we make this combat interesting. And the first kind of stage of that is really finding a map. Which is a little bit difficult because there aren't a lot of Underdark, like good Underdark maps. So I might see There's a Chepeku map that I have in mind. Chepeku. Explore maps. There's a Chepeku map that I have in mind that's... I can't remember whether it's like Shadowfell, Spider Queen Throne. We'll keep that in mind in case we need to fight in the Drow Queen's throne room. Nightmare Dragon Lair. No, we don't need that. The one I've got in mind, I remember the purple. I remember like a big bridge. It's very specific, I know. I think it was Shadowfell. There, is that the one I'm thinking of? That must be the one I'm thinking of. The Shadowfell Fortress Bridge. I like this map. I would like if we could get one. How do we open in new tab? That's what I want. I want to zoom in on it a little. Something like this would be nice. We could, if we can fog this up so it doesn't look too much like the Shadowfell. Want like a fortress. I've already established that the Dwerga have been kind of rooted from their location. So if we're like, oh, there is a fortress that used to belong to the Dwerga, now it's kind of being occupied by the Necromancer, you need to assault it. That could give us, we could get some interesting gameplay out of this. If they were going to kind of assault the Necromancer's lair. Again, thank you for reminding me again. It's been a very long time since I've done the streaming thing, so I forget how it's done. This is the map that I had in mind. So in my brain I was seeing this version, the purple one. But there's a couple different variations. There's a couple where it's broken. So being able to... I like maps that work in stages. Being able to change the conditions of the map is always really nice. So having this as being like a fallen Dwerga stronghold that they need to kind of retake from the Necromancer could be cool. It doesn't feel like the map that would be for like the final boss fight, but it would be like this session would be Assault on the Fortress, next session would be the last fight. Which I can work with because it means that this session I'd only need to worry about some big cool monsters for them to fight outside, and then next week I need to figure out the actual kind of big fight. And it has an associated scene, so I could potentially grab that, and they typically have animated versions of these as well, so I could throw that up, get the ambiance. I know it's Shadowfell, but I could do some tweaks in a video editor to make that feel more like it's underground, potentially. So that's one option, is kind of assault a fortress, fight some undead. So if we were doing that, I'd want to be looking at building up a roster of undead that would be a nice mix of monster types. So we'd want some artillery, either through spellcasters or ranged undead. Because they're undead, we'd probably err towards spellcasters versus, crossbows or bows and arrows. We'd want some brutes, so we'd want some big hulking zombies. They've already fought a couple hulking zombies, so maybe some big cinder crusted skeleton giants could be really cool. Those are Chepekus. Yes, those are Chepeku maps. Love Chepeku maps. They are always really cool. We'd also want some like fast skirmishes going on. We would want a good mix of monsters to make a really dynamic encounter. But this map does feel more like kind of a grand assault that you'd have as part of a larger force. I don't know necessarily whether just like the four of them would be running across this bridge straight up, Some Underdark monasteries. Yeah, exactly. That, you know, I want some nice Underdark monsters that we can make Cinder versions of, to throw around. So let's take a run at the necromancer. Let's think about what we want to achieve narratively from this. So the players came down to the Underdark with not a care in the world. They didn't have a goal. They didn't have any ideas as to what they wanted, which makes it super easy. You don't have to cater to their specific wants. So instead, what I want to do is I want to focus this, really narrow our focus here, and instead focus on the one player, the one Cinder Dwarf who has any kind of personal connection to this, because no one else has got any personal connection. So instead, we'll go nice and narrow, and we'll frame everything we do here from that character's point of view. Hector says, what's the level? The level is level 6, I believe. Heard Underdark monsters as Underdark monasteries and was very confused. Why did you fight monsters? Yeah, I think I confused myself. It's been a long week, okay? My brain isn't braining. My brain's never braining. So I want to contextualize everything that we do here in service of this one character, because we're building on specifically this character, you know, where this is their time in the spotlight. We'll give moments to the other characters through gameplay, but in terms of story, this is this character's moment to shine. So this character wants to find out more about Cinder. So let's start making notes. If I can get my notes to work. Wants to learn more about Cinder. It wants to slow petrification. They have a connection to the Cinder Dwarves. So over the course of this story, we can assume that the players are probably going to end up siding with the Cinder Dwarves because they have a Cinder Dwarf in their midst. So unless something really unexpected happens, I'd imagine the players are going to be willing to betray the Drow, turn on the Drow, do whatever they need to against the Drow to side with the Cinder Dwarves. So we can make a lot of assumptions based on that. And we can also use that to kind of push the drama to interesting places. So at the moment, the players are working for both sides. So we want to create a situation where working for both sides is a problem for them, because at the moment it's all smooth sailings. We want to make it dangerous for them. So, thinking Cinder infused items is what I was thinking. Having some kind of new threat, because this is a situation that hasn't been going on for super long, but it's been going on long enough where some new development could really shake things up. So having some Cinder infused weapons thrown into the mix could be really fun. Having them sent out, if the Drow send the players to pick up a Cinder infused item, the players will just hand it to Cinder Dwarves. We lose our chance for drama in that sense because the players can just leave. What we need is the Drow to bring Cinder weapons into the city, and then the players be tasked with stealing them. I think that would be dramatic, interesting, and fun. Because the Drow aren't going to bring... I don't think the Drow would bring the Necromancer into the city. I think the Drow would just execute the Necromancer. But they would bring weapons in. So that could be what we do. So go. We don't take a run in the Necromancer. We have them find out. Find out that cinder-infused weapons have been brought into the city, and then they can be tasked by the Cinder Dwarves with stealing the weapons. The great thing about that is I don't need to think about that hugely beyond the scope of that prompt, because the players will come up with 8 million harebrained schemes and I can figure out which one of them is the real one on the go. I just need to figure out where in the city they would hold it. So let's go back to the Erendane map. We've got this big building here that I haven't tagged as anything in particular because I couldn't quite work out what I wanted it to be. That seems like an ideal location. So we've got the palace of the Drow Queen up here. We've got a big library. We've got the barracks for the Drow kind of militia and their garrison. Down here we've got the Dwerga Conclave, so all of their tents that they're currently living in. We've got a big emporium where the player's going to be able to buy things. Whatever this big building is, this big building seems like the perfect place to stage a heist. So I'll make a note from the big building. Don't know what the big building is yet, but at least I know where it is in the city, which gives me a lot of information, because then I can look at it and figure out where the players are going to approach a heist from. Like, they're looking at this, they're figuring it out. So that's good. I think we've got a reasonable idea of where the players are going to take that. A lot of the rest of it is noodling details, like looking through lists of weapons and figuring out what cinderized versions I want to make, and what specifically, finding some layout maps for this. It's a lot of sitting in silence and scrolling through pages of tables, which is no fun to watch on stream. So we'll change gear and we will jump back up to the world map. Lyceum of Arcanum. I like the words. I also like the words because I'm pretty sure I went with Lycia as the name for the spider goddess, because there's a wolf spider species that starts with an ly that I kind of like. Lycosa, I think, it's the wolf spider species, and I liked the ly. But I wanted something that had a more flowy sound to it. And Lycia is it a Latin or a Greek root word for something to do with education and learning? And I was like, that's a nice sounding word. I'ma have it. So that ended up being the word for the Drow's word for their spider goddess. So having the Lyceum of Arcanum be the place could work. Definitely could work. But like I said, a lot of that, the rest of planning for that specific adventure, is going to be noodling through lists of what are the weapons and scrolling through Google for maps, which doesn't make fun viewing. So instead, we'll go and we'll do some more filling in of the map with some random encounters and build out some more of the world map, which is a lot of the stuff that we used to do in the old school streams. So to do that, I'm going to need to load up my big old Excel sheet that's got all of my generators in it. And get that all fired up. Where is it? Index. What do we want? Do we want points of interest generator? Let's go evocative points of interest first. And then F9 to Nope. F9. Let's have a look. So we've got the Demon's Mouth. Nah. The Growling Cavern. No. The Resonant Glen. Nope. Stone Catacombs. The Dire Savannah. The Red Sands. Falcon's Megalith. Crawling Warren. Gleaming Hospital. Cerulean Sea. I do like the word Cerulean. Howler's Keep. Dead Fortress. Yellowhorn. Rotten Plaza. Scowling Halls. Howler's Spike. Summer Rain. None of this is jumping out at me. Let's go to some more generic points of interest and see what we get from them. A Travelling Knight. Have we got any Travelling Knights in the Vale? Have we got any Travelling Knights, period, actually? Let's have a look on the old map. Scroll and see. Cerulean Sea, isn't that most seas? Yeah. Travelling Knight. We don't have any Travelling Knights, so we can put a Travelling Knight in somewhere as a little random encounter. So the players are currently up in the Underdark, so they're going to take the road south to Malachite. So maybe let's have someone on the road. I think we can probably move our disgruntled miners because we've had some mine plots already. So let's get a Travelling Knight on the road to Dream. So we go create from template, and the template that we're using is going to be our point of interest, and this is going to be a Travelling Knight, and we make that hidden. Also, the hospital one sounded nice if you're still in the mood for spooky stuff, despite October being past. An abandoned haunted hospital always does the job. I'm always in the mood for spooky stuff. After kind of high fantasy, spooky is definitely my preferred genre, and it's the genre that I pull into my sessions more than any other. So I would say that, like, the majority of my sessions err on the side of heroic fantasy. And then if another genre comes into play, it's almost always horror, because it's just so useful. Right, so we've got some kind of Travelling Knight. Let's give our knight a name. Knight name generator. Or actually, our master book spreadsheet has got an NPC generator. Let's see what we can get out of that. Rourke McEwen. That's a bit of a mouthful. An elf. Ooh, nope, that's a bit of a cluster. Let's keep generating Denton. Nah. Some kind of Ganassi. And Ganassi would be nice. It's been a while since they've encountered a Ganassi. Let's make a note. This is going to be some kind of Ganassi. We like a good Ganassi. Some kind of Ganassi Knight. Let's figure out where they're going, what they've been doing, and why they've been doing it, where they're going. I don't think I want this to be necessarily a combat encounter. This is just someone they're going to meet along the road that they could encounter at a later time. So I'm going to make a note that this is someone that could later join their free company, because the players are members of a free company. So we'll go ahead and have them be someone that could be part of the free company in the future. And some kind of Ganassi would be a nice kind of variety to our free company. We don't have a Ganassi. I know exactly who it should be. Like, it should be this guy. It should be Blaze. It should be our iconic sorcerer. It shouldn't be a knight at all. It should be a traveling sorcerer. Brain is braining. It should be Blaze, who's our iconic sorcerer and already has a whole heap of backstory, so I don't have to write anything for him because I already know it all. So I can just add it and it's already in the old brain pan. So Blaze is one of our iconic characters. So for those of you that don't know, publish a magazine every month. SIDEQUEST is been posted into the chat already. So SIDEQUEST is our monthly magazine where we publish 5e and PF2 compatible material every month. And over the last several months, we've been publishing iconic characters. So we've been making an iconic character for each of the kind of core classes. Blaze is the Fire Ganassi sorcerer, who is our iconic sorcerer. So we'll use Blaze, and that can actually be a good way of getting in some characters that we can introduce to the players across the Jewel Cities. So they could join the free company in the future, potentially. So he'd be on his way to do something. I can't remember what he'd be on his way to do. Possibly something dangerous, exciting and explosive. This is turning more from a just passing by encounter to this is an interesting guy that we want to follow. So let's go ahead and take a quick glance at Blaze's info and refamiliarize myself with some of his information and his wants and needs. Cool. So Blaze was formerly the Prince of the Brass City over in the Plane of Fire. Is currently on the run, having escaped that life. So maybe being hunted by some kind of agents of the Brass City. Excuse me. On the run. Agents of the Brass City. Needs the player's help. Perfect. So we'd have some Azer or some other fire-themed creatures hunting this sorcerer that the players would encounter. They could, provide a random encounter on the road, a nice fight, and then get to go on their way, potentially join the company in the future. And then let's go ahead and generate another point of interest. Is this the right page? Nope, it's the wrong page. Murder site, we've already got one of those in the Vale. The Shrine to Noctis we've already got. We've got some Traveling Nobles. I think we might have a lot of the stuff from this list already on here. It's the kind of downside of doing so many pins is we've already covered a lot of the bases, so it might make more sense to look and search for some of the things that have already put on here and sorted by level. So these are, if we look here on the right, a lot of the tags, a lot of the pins that I've put down, I specifically put a little bracketed level for them to kind of help me get a sense of this is roughly what level the party should be when they're encountering these things. So let's search for level 6 appropriate things and have a look at some of the monsters that come up and see whether we can move any of them into the Veil and see how it would work. The pirate standoff, that rings a bell. Yes, I have already moved the pirate standoff. So the pirate standoff was one of the random encounters that I had on the other side of the Jewel Cities, where the players would encounter a standoff between some pirates and they'd get embroiled in a big old plot to find some buried treasure and stuff. And I have since moved it over to the Veil so that when the players are on their way back from their jaunt in the Underdark, they will probably encounter this to give them another thread to pull on in the future, give them more directions to go. Because one of the things that I want to do is make sure they always have lots of options for places to go and ways to kind of take themselves. This is one of the big things in this unbox campaign, is it's so open. It can be really overwhelming to know what to go and do next, and that's been one of the big benefits of this treasure map that I gave the players. Let's see if I can find this Goram treasure map. Is it in the players section? It is in the players section. Success. So this is the treasure map that I gave them. Now you have all the context you need. So it's just a copy of the main map that I threw some sepia on, cropped in a little bit, and then hand drew some information on. So this down here is Holden, which is the town that they are based out of. The Buried Primordial is the Jurassic Park adventure that we did really early on. And then since I gave them this map, they've basically been alternating between going and investigating something on this map and then picking up a quest that I will give them. And that rhythm has been working really well. So what will typically happen is, like, they will go to the Underdark and they'll follow their own pursuits. They'll decide, we want to go to the Underdark, and then on the way back I will present them with a quest. In this case it'll probably be that pirate standoff, and then once they do that, they'll look again at the map and they'll look at their options and they'll go, right, which one of these do we want to go and see now? They've been to this Cave of Screaming Tomorrows. That was the first one that they went to. That was filled with weird, esoteric, eldritch, wild magic. It had a set of infinite staircases. It had an infinite staircase that was filled with wild magic, and every time you took a step up it, you had to roll on a wild magic surge. I have a big book of like 10,000 wild magic surge results, and that was a banana session because they got so many. They just kept going up and up and up and getting more and more results. It was almost like drawing from the deck of many things in the level of bonkers that they were getting from this thing. Like, one of the players, our fighter, now cannot touch writing implements or paper. Anytime he touches paper or writing implements, they just turn to ash in his hands. Our party wizard can't say names anymore, so he can't say any name, thanks to the weird wild magic of these stairs that they went up. One of the players became insanely paranoid that someone in the party was going to kill them. They became paranoid that they were going to be murdered by someone close to them. And that character, the player is still playing, they've changed characters because that character has kind of become a paranoid recluse now and has kind of locked themselves away because they're sure that someone close to them is trying to murder them. Another one of the players lost the ability to ascend stairs or ladders for a time, which made for really interesting, like, zany gameplay. And that kind of nonsense wild magic is some of my favorite stuff in games like D&D and Pathfinder, because it's so unpredictable, and watching the players deal with the fallout is always really fun. Like the wizard who can't say names, the ways in which he's been getting around that, and like the titles that he's been giving people. And even now, it's been quite a while since they went to this place. When did they go? It's been a long time. Cave of Screaming Tomorrows. So it's been like 16 weeks since they went there. And fair play to the wizard player. He's still committing to the bit and not, calling anyone by their names. So they've been to the Cave of Screaming Tomorrows. They have been to this Timestone research area. They've been to the Unexplored Mine, and they've now been to the Underdark and the Buried Primordial. So they've got the Living Mountain, the Nightmares, which has been specifically marked to be avoided, the Deadly Storms, which has specifically been marked to investigate, and then this area that's Beware the Morrowkin. I don't think they're going to go to the Morrowkin anytime soon, just because it's in a different font and all in caps and out in C. So I think that they get the vibe that that's too high a level for them to go for. And then I think there's a couple of other places that I've marked on the wider map in general, because we play via Foundry, so I've been marking the map via Foundry as well, just to kind of give them some sense of, here are some of the options that you've got for random places to go, which has been really good. So they'll finish up in the Underdark, which is one of their chosen places, one of their sandbox locations, and then I'll probably throw Pirate Standoff at them because it's on their way back. I don't think that they'll come back up this way of their own volition again, so it'd be nice to get that in front of them, because it'll be a fun kind of classic adventure heist kind of storyline, which should be a lot of fun. And then they'll get to go and explore their own quests again. So let's see how we're doing for time here. It's 9:30. So I'm going to think about winding down. So if anyone's got questions, comments, anything like that, anything that you want to know about my game world, how I run the sessions, anything that you want to know about Legend Keeper or the way that I run the game, pop them down in the comments below, and we'll do a little bit of Q&A type stuff before we end the stream. So I usually like to end with a bit of Q&A, like answer anything that hasn't come up before in the stream before we end for the evening, while I try and recover my voice. And then what else have we got on here? Legend Keeper usually is fine handling this page with all of the pins. It doesn't like streaming them though. So we've got to start on the next adventure. That's good. Need some items. Need to figure out what these cinder items are, and need some maps for a heist, which is pretty good. I also probably need probably need more tokens for some more drow and some more dwarves, so I'll do that in Baldur's Gate, which is really useful, especially for the cinder dwarves, like, because you can put any skin tone on people. Being able to take the dwarf ancestry and hue shift their skin red, because cinder dwarfs have got red hued skin. Trying to find tokens like of that just on the internet, super difficult. So really grateful to Baldur's Gate to be able to do that. But if no one's got any questions or anything, I'm going to wrap things up here. It's been wonderful chatting with you all this evening. It's nice to get back into things. I'm going to try and do streams like this every week. I don't want to commit too hard to it too soon. So I'm very aware that it's been a while since we've done this, but I would like to do this every week again if possible. Probably sticking to the in the week schedule, because the Sunday nights were killer. Like starting so late on a Sunday night just absolutely wiped me out. So starting earlier in the week, a little bit more doable for me. Hopefully be able to keep it up for longer. Hector says, do you build your own NPCs? If so, how do you make them? Not really a world building question though. That's fine. If you've got non-world building questions, that's absolutely fine too. So for NPCs, for stat blocks and stuff, I will usually just find the stat block of an NPC or a monster that works and then just rename it and put a different token on it. So like guards, nobles, guard captains, all of those kind of NPCs are always really useful for running kind of allied NPCs to the players, and then I'll just reskin monsters for NPCs if I need to. It's very rare that I will make a kind of complete NPC stat block totally from scratch, because there's very rarely any need to in most systems. It's just easier to grab an existing one and throw a new name and a face on it. I'm going to go ahead and throw some links down in the chat. So we've been using Legend Keeper to do our world building this evening. I've got a whole playlist of stuff on Legend Keeper here on YouTube, which I'll throw a link down in the chat. There's a bunch of videos of me using it, how I built my GM screen in Legend Keeper, how I use it from day to day, the map that we used it, and kind of did all of our pins and stuff on. I made an incarnate. I've got a video where I talk about that as well. That's not linked in my standard buttony button. We have a Discord server where you can come and hang out between streams and get involved in the chat. There's a whole bunch of different channels there for both players and game masters. There's also a Jewel Cities channel there where I post some updates between live streams. I'm going to try and get more active in that channel again now that we're streaming again, to post more often in there. And then, as has been linked down at the bottom, all evening I have a Patreon where I publish a magazine every month, not every week. I definitely could not keep up with that release schedule. Every month, called SIDEQUEST, and I am currently, as of this week, in the middle of sending out all of the second year annuals to all of the Kickstarter backers for that, which is why I'm so tired. I'm very much looking forward to going into an Odin sleep once that is all done, because I've been boxing parcels and loading parcels into the postman all week, and I'm very tired from it. But I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope that you found this inspiring and it's helped tickle your inspiration for your own world building and get you excited to go and do your own world building. We're going to do these more frequently. I'm thinking that Thursday night will probably be when we do it. It'll either be Tuesdays or Thursdays. We'll stick with Thursdays, see how we get on. I'm thinking same bat time, same bat channel, 8 o'clock UK time for a start. That works pretty well for me. We'll see how we get on. And yeah, until next time, happy gaming.